This podcast is brought to you by lineupmedia.fm.
Because if you can tell me what your habits are, I can tell you what sort of a person you are. I can tell you what your future looks like.
But like I always say, life is 10% what happens to you, it's 90% what you do about it.
The people who are most effective in the workplace believe that their future is going to be bigger than their past. When people don't believe that their future is going to be bigger than their past, they begin to disengage.
You're listening to The Circuit of Success, a podcast dedicated to helping you achieve success in every facet of life. Only on the lineupmedia.fm podcast network. Now, your host, Brett Gilliland.
Welcome to The Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland. Today, I've got Dr. John Delony with me. John, what's up, buddy?
What up? How we doing, man?
I'm awesome. Hey, we got the same mics.
I agree. I know. I got your text. You're like, "Hey, dude, let's get the same mics."
Yeah.
And I was like, "I'm in."
Bring out the Shure mic.
Exactly.
The Joe
What this
Rogan
is?
mic, as everybody calls it. The Joe. How you got the Joe Rogan mic? Anyway, I've got the John Delony mic is what I've got today. And you were on the show, man. We did this June 24th, 2021. We chatted. You had one book called Redefining Anxiety. Now you have another book called Own Your Past, Change Your Future, which I'm sure we'll dive into and talk about, man. But it was so good to have you, and I'm glad you're back.
Dude, I'm so grateful for your hospitality, man. That's really kind of you.
So we're going to dive right in, because if people need to know who John Delony is, they can listen to our last episode, which is almost a year ago. But just real quick, you are, like I said, two-time author, mental health expert, the host of the John Delony Show. You got 2 PhDs and two plus decades of counseling, man. So you're helping tons of people and serving. And I got to tell you,
I got 5 chickens, 2 dogs,
5 chickens
and some kids. Yeah.
and some. How many kids you got?
2.
2 kids, 5 chickens, a wife, and
Just figuring it
some land, and you're down there in a beautiful Nash Vegas.
That's right.
Nash Vegas. And you got a new dentist, Caleb Estes.
I'm hyped about this, man. I've been needing this for a long time. That's my wife.
We're going to dive right in. You can see this F greater than P on my microphone here. And I talk about this on a lot of these shows, probably since you and I started recording, but that's our mission statement, is helping people achieve a future greater than your past. And then I see the name of your book here, Own Your Past, Change Your Future. I love it, man. I couldn't connect anymore with just even the title. The book is phenomenal. So when you hear those words, helping people achieve a future greater than your past, what comes to mind for you?
Man, we live in this ecosystem that has really given us 2 paths forward. The first path is everything that happened to you will only be the worst thing that ever happened. Right? Everything that has happened to you is a limiting factor, and it's ongoing, and it continues and will always hold you down because you're broken and you're dysfunctional. So the abuse, the people who treated you differently because you were the wrong color, the people who hurt you, that's who you are. That's your identity, and that's all you'll ever be. And you need somebody to come save you because you're not enough. And the other narrative we've been given is, if you have a feeling you're a coward and you're weak, and you're a wimp, suck it up, grind it, and just keep taking the next step. And both of those paths, I think, are nonsense. And so really this book is the third way. When I hear helping your future be better than your past, I think, yes, that's a much more succinct way. It took me like 250 pages to say that. You said that on the back of your microphone. That's incredible. I have to acknowledge what happened. I've got to acknowledge what happened in my life. And then I have to ask myself that one terrifying, scary, brave question, which is, so what am I going to do next? And that's where most of us get caught, man. We don't ask that next question.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. And for you, it's on the back of the mic, but for me, it was, I've been doing this for 20 plus years, being in the financial wealth management business and owning a firm and been doing this for a long time. And so it's 2 decades of that, right? Of helping people achieve a future greater than your past. And what I like to spend time on with our clients and with other people, or maybe somebody I'm interviewing on a podcast, is it doesn't mean your past is bad, right? Maybe you had a great upbringing but you still want a future that is greater than your past. Or maybe you did have a very bad past and you're trying to run away from that and you're trying to have a future greater than your past. And so for us, it's really sitting down and defining what is the future, right? What does that look like? What's that process like for John Delony?
Defining my future right now, it's hanging on, man. This whole adventure here, I had built my career up to do something completely different, and now this new thing is kind of lost its mind a little bit. So I'm having a blast, but it's trying to just figure out and learn in real time. Ultimately, my future looks like, can I get into a place, be one of the first people in the history of my family to get in a place that we have financial security, we can all exhale. Everybody can sleep at night because there's not dragons chasing us out the door. Can I get in a place where I can take my foot off the gas a little bit and be present and be whole? And so that's what we're looking for. And then work just becomes it's just a way to fulfill a personal mission, which is I want people to be well, man. I want people to look in the mirror and be happy with what they see. And that's tough for most of us these days.
Yeah. So when you think about that compared to what you were doing in the past versus now what you're doing in the present, how are those things two totally different things that you never thought you'd be doing what you're doing right now?
The mission's still the same. When I was the dean of students, or I was a college professor, or I was helping do, a police department do death notifications at 2:30 in the morning, I always wanted people to be a little bit more well. Before that, so that's been about the last 7, 8, 9 years. Before that, my life was 100% about what title can I get, how much money can I make, how cool can I look doing this thing, can I get this position at this place, can I get this promotion? And that was a hollow travesty of a journey there. It's a complete and utter waste of life. And so it shifted now. The mechanics of the day-to-day, dude, it's a thousand. I'm wearing makeup, for God's sake, right now. I just got off the radio show, right? So my whole life is different now. I've got to, like, people comment on my clothes. Nobody ever did that at my other job. And I've got to be really tuned into some of the literature in certain ways that I didn't need to do. Because if I tell somebody to do X, Y, and Z with their kid, they're going to go do it. So I got to be right. So it's a radically different life. But at the same time, the mission is the same.
Yeah. So paint that picture for us. You just got off the John Delony Show. You're part of the Dave Ramsey Network. So obviously tons and tons of listeners. I mean, mostly a call-in type show, right? That's what drives probably the script every day. Obviously there's some preparation that goes into that, obviously, but talk to us about that, man, the pressure you have for that, and look at it from the lens of, you've got how many hundreds of thousands or millions of people listening and calling in versus the person that's driving down the road today. Maybe they've got a board meeting, or maybe they've got this thing, right, that's going on in their personal life or at work. How do we get through the pressure and strive through the pressure, or thrive through the pressure, I should say?
I love that question. I really am completely divorced from the external outcomes. I have metrics meetings and I get all in there. I'm a data nerd. And so I want to know how the business works. And I like to know every nook and cranny. But when I'm sitting in front of somebody and a caller calls in, like the call I took today, that a husband and wife are really disconnected in their intimacy. And a dad has a son who's really struggling with anxiety and had to call the police on him. I could care less about how many people are the numbers of the people on the other end of that. Right now, I've got a hurting person in front of me saying, "Hey, do you see me? And can you help me?" And so often we take in too much sensory information when they're in the middle of a presentation that we got to make, or prepping for something, or we have to write an article, and how many readers are going to. Man, the thing I always want to keep in mind is, how simple can I make this, and how narrow can I make my audience, which is generally an audience of one. And if I can do that, man, then we're off to the races. It's the same in your business. And I think this is the second challenge here. Somebody looks at you and says, I come from a lot and I don't want to be the one who blows this. How do I manage my money? Or I came from nothing and I've scratched and clawed my way to a little bit of something. Help me pass this on to my next generation. And here's the thing, you give them wisdom and advice and they go do it. And so you better be right. And I didn't recognize that when I was, as a college professor. Nobody listens to what I'm saying. I tell kids to do stuff all the time. Nobody listens to me. But here, If I tell somebody, go get a psychiatric eval of your kid and watch out for benzodiazepines, when they're going to go do that. And so I better be right. And I better be on top of the literature. And I better be on top of making sure I know what I'm talking about, so that somebody takes action on something and I'm not just some popping off influencer running their mouth trying to get clicks.
Yeah. But it also comes with your the wisdom you have from doing what you've been doing for 20 plus years. I mean, people want to be told what to do as well, I believe, sometimes, right? So it depends. But I mean, I had a guy the other day, right? Markets are going crazy. What should I do? And it was a pretty good chunk of change. And I told him exactly what I would do. And he said, let's go. He goes, that's what I want to hear. This guy's the doctor. And he said, look, I come into a room and I can't tell a patient or ask a patient, I don't know, what do you want? What do you want to do? Right. So for those people listening, I mean, you got to be strong and you got to know your craft, know your thing, and be willing to put it on the line and maybe not get the client or get that thing done because you said something that they didn't want you to hear, but you still got to say what you believe.
That's right. And I think we have a strange vortex right now going on within the information wars right now. And this idea of truth versus belief. Like, I believe this and I believe this. That's cool, but the data says that, right? So I think there's this both and. I love what you said. It's that old Nassim Taleb skin in the game that I love. One of the lessons I learned when I was working in higher ed was I used to always ask, hey, what do you think about any number of issues? What do you think about climate change? What do you think about spraying your bug spray on your kids? And I worked with so many brilliant minds. They would rattle off all of these studies and give me like a litany of, well, this and this. And so, this and this. And then their kids would come into my house and they would spray their kids down with bug spray. And I'd be like, wait a minute, I thought we just had this conversation. So I literally, this is about 10 years ago, I quit asking, what do you think? I just don't ask that question anymore. My question is what do you do in your home? What do you do with your kids? What are you doing with your money? The guy that I work with, it's my financial advisor. I ask him, what are you doing right now with your home portfolio? Make mine match yours. Because I know he's got a little kid too. And that's how I, move forward. And I may call him and say, hey, go ahead and pull out of bonds, even though I know that's this. But most of the time, like, whatever's good for your family, what would you do? Right. Yep. And that's how I try to answer calls on my show. Here's what I would do.
I love that. So talk to our listeners about that show. So when people are calling in, they're asking all sorts of stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all over the place. And again, I think most of our challenges can be distilled down to a few categories. But yeah, man, all of us, man, we're all trying to figure out what we're doing and struggling and trying to do a little bit better tomorrow and do a little bit better for our kids. And it's tough, man. Life's tough.
All right. So we're talking to an expert here, Dr. John Delony. And so I'll be transparent and we're going to have some fun. We're going to have a therapy session. Is that all right?
Yes, I'm not a therapist, but we can. I'm a pretend podcast.
Pretend therapist. You're a podcast therapist with 2 PhDs. I don't have any PhDs. They don't let guys like me get PhDs. But let's talk about building habits, man. I love this topic. Building habits, your mindset, your money, the things that we talk about. But building habits. How do we build better habits when we know what's right for us? And so here's where I'm going to be transparent. I know that eating healthier for me is better than not eating healthy, right? Yet I walk across the street today and I grab a nice pulled pork sandwich, phenomenal stuff, Sugar Fire, give them a shout out, phenomenal food. But instead of, I get me a side salad, but then I had to add the corn and all the stuff that they've got all sorts of goop into that everybody loves. So I know that probably wasn't the healthiest choice for me. So I got to build a better habit. How do I do that?
So we're going to pull you apart here.
We're going to pull me apart right here. Let's go.
All right. So I think problem number one is we spend way too much time focusing on the thing, on the behavior that we want to change. We get really obsessive about, I want to eat different. I want to not eat another side when I go into the barbecue restaurant. I want to start limiting my calories. And there's a barbecue restaurant across the street. It's incredible. So I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to get the sandwich. That's it. I'm not even going to eat the bread. I'm just going to get the meat because the meat's so delicious. And then, God, it's fine. I'm so tired and I'm exhausted and sleep well. Get the corn. And then we have this shame spiral that starts. And for me, the only way out of a blood sugar crash shame spiral is more sugar, of course, right? So then I got ice cream on the way home, right? That's the only way. And so if I'm going to change that behavior, the first thing I'm going to do, and this is straight from James Clear's stuff, I'm going to create a new identity first, not a new goal. We are a culture obsessed with goals, and goals are cute and fun. And they're fine. They're important, but they shouldn't be the driver. They're bullet points. They're markers along the way. Think of goals like this, the dot, like the stripes in like a highway on the way to wherever it is you're going. Where you're going is your identity. So I'm going to change my identity to, I am a guy who's a good steward of his body. I'm a guy who doesn't eat trash. That's who I am. I'm a guy who doesn't smoke. I'm a guy who honors his body. I'm a guy who doesn't cheat on his wife. I just don't. And so if I'm a guy who doesn't cheat on his wife, I'm going to start reverse engineering that with actions that build into that identity. So I'm building into a destination. Now I've got a place where I'm going. Where I'm going isn't the goal, it's the identity. And so for you, it might be, I've been in your situation before. There was seasons when I was so out of control because I was so tired, I was exhausted, and I was being just lazy, that I took my debit card out of my wallet and gave it to my wife. I had no way to buy food. I just didn't have it. And there's a couple of times I ran out of gas because I was at a gas station. I just went to pull out my card and it was gone. I was like, oh no. And so I'm going to put barriers in the way that allow me to live into this. That may be financial. That may be, I will only take my lunch to work. That may be a confessional night with your wife. So I'm going to backfill this identity with different behaviors. And then this is out of Anna Lemke's book. Her book, Dopamine Nation, is just phenomenal. It's this idea that our bodies are simply not designed to live in the world that they inhabit right now. Our bodies are designed for scarcity and for small communities to live together in relatively miserable conditions. It is not designed for, did you say, sugar pork across the street?
Yeah, sugar fire. Yeah,
sugar fire. I can just go across the street, and even if I don't have the money, it doesn't matter. I'll just pay for it later. And I'll just hand them a piece of plastic or a couple of sheets of paper, and they're going to hand me this incredible thing. Throw the sides on. I'm going to get the cobbler too. That's cool. We're not designed for that world. We're just, to get pulled pork, we would have had to have been on a 2-week hunting expedition to get that.
Yeah, you're right.
So the book is about, I'm going to white knuckle my way through a 30-day fast. I'm going to do 30 days and just stop whatever behavior, checking my phone, texting somebody I shouldn't be texting, smoking, smoking weed, whatever the thing is, eating trash.
Whatever you're eating is, yeah.
I am going to break the cycle. And she goes through the dopamine science about how the dopamine pleasure pain balance works. And it's remarkable. But ultimately, I've found some great success with, I am going to ride my exercise bike in my house for 45 minutes every single day for 30 days. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to lift weights too, but I will not miss that bike ride. If I'm on a plane, I'm going to get to the hotel at 11 at night. I'm going to ride that bike 45 minutes. And what I found on day 31 is waking up, my body expected to go into that room. Like it just became a way of being. And now if I skip it, I know I feel so bad skipping it. It's like the whole reward system has inverted itself. And so I'm going to start with identity. I'm going to backfill that with action. Sometimes it's changing the environment, even as simple as turning your desk around so you don't face sugar fire every morning. You just look at it. Or I'm not going to roll my windows down because I don't want to smell it, right? These are these little micro behaviors that ultimately turn into, I don't know, even look at it anymore.
That's good. And I can eat healthy at sugar fire too. I don't want to.
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. No, it sounds awesome. Here's the big thing. This is where I think modern psychotherapy has let us down a bit. We've come to believe that if I can just get the right thoughts in the right order, I can be mentally well. Yeah. If I can just get the right thoughts in the right order, then I can build better habits, grow my business and whatever. And the reality is you got to do stuff different. And I've got to take some pretty drastic actions if I'm going to have pretty drastic results in my life. And we don't talk about that enough, that act your way into thinking differently.
And we talked back in June, you talked about your daily habits then, and it was gratitude, weights, play some music like on your guitar, take the cold tub, meditation / prayer time, walking outside, like earthing, and then, being in your garden. I mean, those are the things I think if I followed you around still now, almost a year later, am I still seeing that?
Yeah, my cold tub's gone about the way of the buffalo. So I need to get me like a
new thing. One. Yeah.
But yeah, on the whole, I run real hard at work, and which means I got to take real good care of my body exercise wise, and I try to limit junk, even though somebody was just gave me a lemon tart in the last meeting, and it was so good. And last night I ended up, I don't know, we played some weird tag game with swords and tennis balls, pegging each other, me and my 2 kids running around with no shoes on the grass last night. So, yeah, it's a combination of relaxing, getting outside, exercise and moving your body, trying to eat right, and human connection. Those are the cornerstones there.
Yeah. And what are you doing from a daily standpoint? I have what I call my daily planner, right? And so here's tomorrow already. It's not tomorrow yet, so it's empty. You probably can't see it on the camera, but I've got my things from meditation to my mood to the weather to my water intake, book reading, exercise, what I'm grateful for, all those things. Like, what am I following you around, and how do you live this crazy life that you're living? And I think you said maybe July you can come up for some air.
Yeah. I have to be real intentional about the seasons coming up. And I think this whole idea of balance is shenanigans. It's not real.
Right.
Where I can find balance is if me and my wife are on the same page, and me and my wife and kids. And so a good example of that is in August of last year, I knew that of this year, I had a hammer. It was last year of a deadline to finish this book. And they actually left town for a week. But in that August, that August, we sat down and said, all right, here's what the next 7 to 9 months is going to look like getting this book out. It's going to be a wild deadline, and then it's going to be a crazy season of editing, and then even a nuttier season of media. And then I'm going to be on the road pushing this thing. And come June, we're going to slow down a little bit. And come July, you and I are getting out of here. And we're going to be gone off the grid for a while. And the kids, hey, we're going to be off the grid for a while. And so anybody can do anything for a long time if we set that up. We just have to say, okay, here's the season. What I would have done in a former life is just enter into writing a book, and then all of a sudden it gets busy. Then all of a sudden and we never talk about it. And then my wife all of a sudden isn't seeing me that much. And she's like, well, I guess it's just my life. And I think, man, my wife's all grumpy now. I guess it's just my life. And all of a sudden we wake up and we're 55 and we're sharing a bed with each other, but we don't know who each other is anymore.
Yeah.
So now it's about intentionality. Usually I don't have one today. Usually I carry around a note card. Yours is way more sophisticated. I just get a note card and write down what I have going on the next day. And I carry that note card around with me and just mark it off. It's a pretty lo-fi way of doing life. And then when it comes to morning routine stuff, I've gotten over the last 3 or 4 years, I've gotten so in tune with my body. I'm pretty good about knowing when to go and when to go and when to go and then when to quit. One of the things I have added in is at the recommendation of Dr. Peter Attia's work is I've added much more zone 2, which is 45, 50, 60 minutes of 30 minutes sometimes of usually riding a bike and at a pace that I can keep a conversation going. And it's a restorative exercise for your body. And then I go pretty hard on some other days.
Yeah. And that's key. I think I'm going to go to that in a second, but you made a point here just a second ago. You said your note card, marking it off. I think for people that don't, I've not been a long-term, guy that's marking stuff off. I was trying to keep it all in my head. But I think as you get busier and there's more things going on in life, man, you can't remember everything. No. And there is power though in marking it off.
Yeah. There's a power in achievement. And if you have a significant depressive disorder and you get institutionalized, you get hospitalized, one of the mainstays moving forward is little wins. Today, what we're going to do is you're going to get out of bed and you're going to put on some lipstick and you're going to lay back down. Or today, what you're going to do is you're going to get out of bed, you're going to brush your teeth, and you're going to go back to bed. And what we're doing is we're just building these little bitty wins, and they build on themselves over and over. And they're as simple as taking your note card out or whatever app you have, whatever it is, and drawing a line through it and saying, got it. And I can't use my phone generally because it's an addiction machine. And I know if I open that thing up, I'm going to be down a rabbit hole of some sort. So I keep it on a note card because I can't control myself.
When you're in somebody else's agenda.
And somebody else is designed, and that box is designed for other people to make money off of me. And so I just need to know, I don't need all that. I just need to know what I need to do today when I need to be where. So I'm going to put that on a note card and put it in my pocket.
How often are you looking at your vision? Like where you want to be 3, 5, 10, 30, whatever, how far your vision is? How often are you looking at that?
How honest do you want me to be with that?
Very honest.
I've gotten to a point where I don't know that I fully am invested in that type of finality. Here's what I've seen working with business leaders for years. They get a goal in mind We're going to have $100 million in sales by the end of this year. We're going to have 5,000 students by the end of this year. And pretty early on in Q1, man, we have a deficit of some sort. Q2, that deficit either shrinks a little bit and everybody starts patting themselves on the back and they take their foot off the gas a little bit, or it grows a little bit more. Q3 becomes a quarter of explanations, excuses, figuring out ways to cut corners, figuring out ways to change numbers. And all of a sudden, why you're doing what you're doing, who you're serving with what you're doing, goes completely out the wayside. And then it becomes this manic obsession with making this vision a reality. And I've just seen leader after leader after leader crash at the cross of their own vision that, by the way, often didn't even exist, wasn't even real. And so for me, my vision, if you will, comes back to, am I helping people be a little bit more peaceful in their life? Am I helping people do a little bit better in the day, be a little bit better parents, a little better husbands? And so the reality for me is, if I got fired today, that would be awful. The money's great and the job's great and I get to work in the air conditioning. That'd be awesome. Then I'd probably go back to being a college professor, or I'd go back to being a high school teacher. I did that for a few years. I loved that job. I was a basketball coach. That was so fun. And my life would be about helping people do a little bit better. And so my vision for myself really is less about professional, less about accumulation, and more about who am I going to be wherever it is that I am.
Yeah.
Hope that makes sense there.
Well, it does. And I'm going to go back to this. We're going to go back into my therapy session here. And so I came from an environment that was very sales driven, had to have this vision, these things, right, to survive and be successful. And then when we started Visionary Wealth Advisors eight plus years ago, you slowly start to get away from that, right? So we're not a sales culture. It's a helping people achieve a future greater than your past culture. And it's crazy because what you said, I mean, you could have knocked me over the feather there, because I beat myself up over the fact that this massive vision, this 20-year vision, 10-year vision is not there, because I'm so focused. And I think our team and our advisors are so focused on this mission right here, helping you achieve a future greater than your past, that it's about that, right? It's about building the platform for our advisors that they can go out and deliver to their clients. And if we can do that every day, we're going to wake up 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years in a better spot, right?
Yeah, what's that old Zig Ziglar line? If you help enough people, money takes care of itself, right?
Yeah, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll ultimately get what you want, right?
I can't think of something that has more wisdom to that.
Yeah.
A good corollary is in higher education, where I come from. You used to have a group of faculty members who were teachers, and you had a group of faculty members who were scientists. And the scientists, like, we all pitched in through our tax dollars to support local universities. And that was a great, wonderful thing. We got untold discoveries out of these. We all pitched in a little bit on our tax dollars, and these scientists were writing studies about discovering medicine and new ways to build bridges and new ways to do roofing, all kind of cool things. Yeah. And then the field shifted ever so slightly to the professor's job was graded on how many publications they got. And so now the incentive is less to spend an entire lifetime creating great knowledge or great science. And it was, I got to get some more articles out. And now several major fields have some really challenging ethical dilemmas ahead of them, because these studies that came out that were so sensational, that got somebody a lot of press, all of a sudden have not been able to be reproduced. They're being discredited, right? So why did I tell you that? Anytime you take your eyes off, who is the person I'm trying to serve? Who's the person? And I don't care if you're making tires, if you do oil changes, if you are a surgeon doing brain surgery, or you're a financial planner, that your eyes always have to be on the person that you're serving. You do have to have some sense of, like, how big can we grow this thing? We've got too many customers.
Sure.
We don't have enough to keep the lights on. There is a business realities. I'm not Pollyanna here. But anytime you start making it about, hey, we've got to hit bigger numbers versus we got to serve more people, man, that's when you make a deal with the devil, and it's really hard to wind that sucker back.
Yeah, no, you're right. And so let's talk to this about, if you can be transparent with this, which I know you will be, but if your wife was sitting here, we switched the camera to her and we interviewed her and asked her about John Delony. We said, okay, talk to us about the John Delony that we don't see with the makeup and the clothes and the lights are on him. He's asking questions and being the great guy that he is. What does he stand for, and what makes him be the guy that you want to be married to?
I'll answer that question. I love that question. But I learned this year. During Christmas, my family was over. It was just a stressful Christmas, and we had a house full of people, and it was day 2, day 3, day 5, and all kind of stuff going on. And I was feeling awful. Wasn't feeling good at all, but I had to get that workout in because I have to keep this smoking hot facade, and I'm being facetious here, so that my wife would still
Doesn't
like
just
me.
happen, does it? It doesn't just happen.
Not at this level, brother. Right. Such an idiot. But I was walking downstairs, and I've got a fairly extensive home gym, and I was walking downstairs, and she said, "What are you doing? Go lay down." And my thought was, I gotta keep this up because I want you to keep liking me. And I said something along the lines of, like, I made a joke, like, "Hey, this fancy body you see before you isn't come cheap." I made some joke just to kind of pass away. And she said, 20%, John, 20%. And I said, "What is that supposed to mean?" And she said, "The way you look, which is great, is about 20% of the reason I love you. The rest of it is not that. Go lay down, please." And I stopped and I was like, 20%? What do you mean? Like, I've been invested way more than that. And then she lopped on there, and I forgot the number, but it was low. She goes, "And about 10 or 15% is how much money you make." And I was like, those are my 2 things. What do you mean?
Exactly.
Take away my income and my gym time? Like, who am? And so I've had that out of balance in my head for a long time. Those are stories I've been chasing, demons I've been chasing now for a long, long time, which is you got to make this much money or you haven't quote unquote made it. You and I may have talked about this last time, but dude, it hit me like a ton of bricks right when I started working here. Like, man, you take all of the vacations you did or didn't go on, all the jobs you haven't had or you have had, all of the degrees you do or don't have, all the braces you didn't have to buy or you did buy, and you distill all that down. And we ask ourselves in this culture one question: what are you worth? And we answer that number we have to answer that question with a number. Shame on us, dude. That's ridiculous. And I had done it. How much do I weigh and how much money do I have in my account? And so she gave me she read all that off. So to flip that back around, I think she would tell you that she loves me because I'm genuinely a pretty nice guy. Try to be a pretty good guy. And I genuinely care about the well-being of other people. And I run too hard, and I'm too naive a lot. I just waltz into situations and I think everything's going to be fine. But ultimately,
But that's critically important, man.
Guy. Yeah.
Right. I mean, to think I can just walk into a room and everything's going to be all right. That's a good attitude, man.
It is, but it also can get you killed.
Well,
and it can get you in some dicey situations when, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
But you know what? I'd like to be in the foxhole
wise.
with you, though. You may think that, but I would also say you would know pretty damn quickly if it's going to be bad and you're going to get killed. You would be able to back up, make the plan, and go attack and get the right team members around you to make it happen.
If I know we're in a fight, for sure. Where I usually don't know is somebody calls and says, "Hey, could you come over and help me with an issue?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll swing by."
Yeah.
I didn't know that was going to be a 12-hour thing. And I tell my wife, and she's like, "Of course that's going to be 12 hours. And so that's where I get naive.
Yeah.
And that's when I got to be careful not to use other people's pain to prop up my self-esteem, which is some danger.
Sorry, I was going to share this. So this is from my son's soccer coach, Skip Birdsong, and he put this on Facebook today, and I thought it was really strong. And you, with your educational background, it says, "Teachers, when you're at graduation this year and your coworkers are crowded around the bubbly, highest achieving students that have all the cords and were in all the clubs, make a point to find that student with the IEP that rarely spoke, struggle with your class, and hit them with the most inspirational words you can pull off out of the well. That student has just climbed their Everest."
That's so beautiful, man.
Isn't that awesome?
That's so beautiful. That reminds me of that quote, "Be nice to everybody. Be kind to everybody, because everyone's fighting a war that you can't see." Dude, that quote that coach put up there is stunning. Here's the thing. I barely was in the top half of my class in high school. I made straight A's in undergrad 0 times. And a couple of times I tried really hard.
Yeah.
And then I ended up with 2 PhDs, and I've got 2 #1 best-selling books, right? So yes, find the kid in the corner that isn't the shiny kid, that isn't the sparkly kid, that's actually the struggling kid,
Yeah.
And yeah, make sure that you look them in the eye and say, I see you and I still love you.
It's strong.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
What have you learned of these last 2 years, man? Coming out of this pandemic, this world was shut down, and what have you learned most from that? Do you think?
The big neon sign that is, I think, is rattling through our hearts and minds right now is that we are radically lonely. And I don't mean that just in proximity. I don't mean just that because people are wearing masks. I mean, we are profoundly lonely, and we've outsourced all of our relationships to the internet and to digital communication. And it's a fascinating scholarship on loneliness, but when you're lonely, dude, you don't sleep as deeply because your brain knows that you got to be on guard all the time.
Yep.
And there are not a single psychiatric disorder that doesn't include disordered sleep. And we used to think that it was you had anxiety, so you didn't sleep well. And now they're starting to flip that and say, wait a minute, I think a season of not sleeping well your body starts to shake and say, hey, we're not okay. Hence, that's anxiety. And so when you're alone, think about it this way. 5,000 years ago, if you're all by yourself in the woods and a twig snaps in the woods, it's probably a frog. 99% chance it's a frog, 1% chance it's a bear. If you got 30 people around, you can holler out, hey, what is that? If it's just you, your brain automatically 100% of the time goes full bear, because if you're wrong, you're dead. If you're wrong and it's just a frog, no harm, no foul. So the two big important things about loneliness is, number one, the biochemical poison of loneliness is killing us. The second thing is it makes us see things that aren't there. And right now we are seeing threats everywhere. We've gone to war with public schools and with doctors. We're seeing threats everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Do we have problems? For sure. Is the world, I mean, it's not that. We've lost our minds. And I believe it's all uniquely resting on how absolutely lonely we all are. Devastatingly lonely.
Yeah, that's a good thought, man. It's true. I think back even to like opening. I'm looking. You can't see my Cardinal hats over here. So big Cardinal fan here in St. Louis. I went to opening day, and I've gone opening day. I don't know how many, 25 times probably in my life. I mean, a lot, right? We jokingly call it a national holiday for my family, but it was something like I've never seen before. I mean, the amount of people that were down there, and I think the world's craving it again, man. And I'm sure we can all say that one thing, and whether it's a conference. I was talking to a guy today. He's like, I'm at my first conference in 2 years, and he was like fired up. He's like, there's people everywhere. There's 700 people here.
Oh, dude, I did a couple of book signings. It was like a punk rock show, man. And here's what at first I was like, that's what I'm talking about, and then I realized, oh no, people are so desperate for like a thing, let's go. And they all go to a Barnes & Noble on a Tuesday night, right?
There's some dude signing a book, honey. I don't know. I'm in. Doctor in front of his name. He's got a radio show.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I'm hoping people get out and start being with one another again.
So obviously, I mean, you can find a book, Barnes & Noble. You can find it on Amazon, Own Your Past, Change Your Future by Dr. John Delony. Check it out. Also check out Redefining Anxiety. I'll end with this, man. I ask everybody on this show about fears, and we're not going to go into this, but I always say, how many of the fears blow up to the magnitude you put them in your mind to be? It's almost zero, right? And I've been saying this now for 5+ years on this podcast about your fears. And I have not flown in an airplane for, it'll be 8 years this June. So next month, 8 years. Had a bad deal above New York City. Drove home from it, flying back down to the Carolinas. I drove home, haven't been on a plane since. And so I'm flying in June. And so you talk about these fears, right? And so I think to myself, okay, if I'm going to sit here every week and talk about these damn fears and I'm not doing it, well, then shame on me, right? So I'm doing it, but how do we get over those fears? Now, you don't have to focus just on me, but for anybody that's driving and exercising right now, we all have these things right up here between our ears, and they're freaking dangerous, aren't they? Terrible thoughts. How do we stop that crap?
Number one, bravo to you, dude. It's awesome. Just phobia 101 is the response is something they call exposure therapy. So let's say you are completely freaked out to the bone about snakes. What they'll do in a counseling setting is they'll have you draw a picture with a crayon of a snake. and you'll talk about it, and then the therapist will draw one with you. And that progresses to like National Geographic photos, and then would probably move to a YouTube clip, right? And so you're teaching your body how to regulate itself in tiny little doses along the way until you finally get to she brings in a snake and puts it in an aquarium on the other side of the room, and you just do your therapy session in there, and it's over there, and your heart's beating, and you finally, right, until finally you're holding the snake. That's the end.
Yeah.
And so that's the way they treat most phobias. Some phobias, some fears, if you will. I talked to somebody today, their wife on my show had deep and profound addiction issues with opioids, and ultimately was in a mental institution. And their kid was struggling with some behavioral outbursts. It's completely expected, but they want him to go get a psych eval. And this husband had this terrifying fear that he's going to go get the eval. They're going to put him on meds, and all of a sudden the cycle is going to repeat himself. And so I had to tell him, your fear is 100% real. And when your fear is 100% real, what I know is our brains don't work well. And so I've got to have other people with me. And so I tell a story in the book where I had this fear that my house was falling apart. And I really believed that. I kept finding the cracks above the doors, and I thought they were in the foundation. They weren't, dude. I was delusional, but I felt like my house was falling apart. And and I had experts come over, contractors come over, and they're like, dude, your house is fine. And finally I had one of my college roommates, who I love deeply, still one of my best buddies. And he came over, he brought his wife and a couple of kids. And he came out and looked at it all. And his dad was in construction, and we walked out on my driveway. I'll never forget this. And he crossed his arms and he looked at me and he said, hey, your house is good. It's strong. And then he said, I don't ever want to hear this again. And what I didn't know at the time was that my wife had called him and said, hey, I'm worried about John. He's not okay. But that was the moment when I realized, okay, maybe the fear isn't the thing. Maybe it's me. And I only got that other view from somebody that I loved and trusted, which, going back to that loneliness thing, if you've got fear in your life, you've got to have other people in your life, because you can count on one thing: you are not seeing north clearly, period. Yeah. And so your body may react in that, as you're walking on that plane, as though time is coming to an end. And that's where you will look at the people with you. You'll hold somebody's hand. Somebody will have their hand around your neck, and you will be able to rely on their strength to get you into that plane and to hold your hands or hold your spirit as y'all take off. Right. So it's relying on one another, which is how we were designed to live.
And it's hopefully that my derelict buddies that'll be on the plane with me that are already telling me they're going to be like, oh, did you hear that noise? Oh my God, the plane's going down.
And hey, humor is an incredible mechanism too, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. They can probably spin you up. And we all have that buddy, that we're all poking on, and they look at you and they go, dude, stop. And everybody goes, all right, cool. You know what I mean? So that's everybody. Good for you. I'm going to try to find that flight, dude. And I'm going to, it's going to
be,
it's worth me paying to be on that flight, because I'm going to give it to you. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I've even thought about just like flying, Nashville or Chicago or somewhere. It's a 45-minute flight from here. You know what I mean? Just get that first one over versus flying all the way. We're going to Tahoe. So instead of going, my first one being a 3 or 4 hour flight.
Yeah, I'd probably do a shorter, probably makes sense.
Yeah, it might make sense. I'll come down and see you in Nashville.
That's right. I've never been a professional boxer. I'm not going to spar. I'm just going to do a 12-round fight. That's good. Yeah, you should probably do a little fight here and there.
Probably
come on down to Nashville, man. We'll go hang out. Get some chips and queso.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, where can we find more John Delony?
Yeah, you can go to johndelony.com. You can check out this incredible podcast. Is another way you find it. But you can go to johndelony.com and find me there. You can find my show on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for being with us again, John. Always great having you.
You're a blessing, brother. Come hang out.
Tune in next week for another episode of The Circuit of Success with Brett Gilliland on the lineupmedia.fm podcast network. Subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and through our website, circuitofsuccess.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and email any questions to info@circuitofsuccess.com.
This podcast was a presentation of lineupmedia.fm.